Good evening, this is James, and I'm answering a question posed to me by Radley about getting cheap or any airfares. Because within the past year, I'm looking at Skype right now. Yeah, interesting question which I might be able to answer. He's asking about getting cheap or any airfares, which is a question I'm somewhat suddenly uniquely qualified to answer because I've had to fly back to the States 3 times within the past year, which is very unusual. Or actually 4 times in the past year and a half, which is kind of unusual because I went for long stretches without going back to the States at all. For cheap airfares, I've gone to a travel agency called HIS. And they're quite good. You tell them what day you want to leave and what day you want to come back and what airline you want to use. And if you have a frequent flyer number, you give that to them and they, I guess, use that to assign the tickets to you, I think. Or make sure your frequent flyer number gets associated with the tickets. That's where I've gone for cheap airfares. I don't know exactly how they do it. They buy their tickets in bulk, I guess, and then sell them cheap. So that's how I got my tickets when I went back to the States in, when was it? October of last year. In October of last year, almost a year ago now, I went back to the States for my grandfather's funeral. Last June, I went back to the States, again via HIS, for my younger brother's wedding. And those were both through HIS. Those are both very cheap. Cost about, like Juichimayan or Junimayan round trip. So that's, and that's just for the airfare. So that's, $1,100, $1,200 round trip to the East Coast, I should say. Flying to the East Coast is an entirely different animal from flying to the West Coast. Then, this past August, my father's lung cancer took a turn for the worse. And during the first week of August, where do I pick this up? Got an email from one of my brothers saying that my dad had a day or two to live. And they weren't sure. Yeah, hell of a way to answer Radley's question. Sorry, Radley. But anyways, I had to get a plane ticket in a hurry. And I didn't have time to go to the travel agency. So I basically stayed up all night, hunted around online for plane tickets. And I ended up getting tickets from American Airlines. United is who I had used previously in October of last year and June of this year. They were the cheapest I could get through HIS. Looking around online, most of the rates I could get on super short notice were around like Yonjuman or $4,000 round trip. Yeah. I think it was round trip usually. We're usually around $4,000 round trip. That was the cheapest I could find, like, online for short notice where seats were open. I mean, I was trying to leave as, oh god, yeah, and I was trying to get my visa renewed at the same time. The next day is when I went to immigration to actually pick up my visa. But I basically stayed up all night trying to get plane tickets to leave Japan as soon as possible. And I ended up getting tickets with American Airlines, who had pretty good service, by the way, and that cost about $2,600 round trip, Niju Dokumayan round trip, which was the cheapest I could get on short notice online. So I don't know if that answers the question or not. What service do you use when getting cheap or any airfares? Well, American Online I wasn't the cheapest I could get, or I mean, it wasn't as cheap as United was previously. But the advantage of reserving myself online as opposed to going through a travel agency is that when it came time to delay my return for the funeral itself, because my father passed away the day before I got on the plane, didn't know the time of the funeral until I was already in the States, of course. The advantage of reserving myself through American Airlines is that when it came time to change my return date, it wasn't a serious problem. You know, I phoned American Airlines, and the only quirk was that since I was using a Japanese credit card, I had to drive into Logan Airport and go to the American Airlines counter to complete I had to pay something like $250 through my Japanese credit card to get the return date changed. I was able to do that because I had reserved myself online. If I'd gone to the travel agency, I'm assuming I would have had to somehow contact the travel agency in Japan and ask them to do it. I don't know if I would have been able to do it myself. But, yeah, American Airlines were totally cool, or reasonable, I should say. Cool would have been if they had done it for free, but reasonable, they charged me a little bit of money to change the return date. So that's my most recent experiences with reserving flights. So cheapest way I've used is HIS. I don't know if they have anyone who speaks English. For flexibility, you need a little bit more money and a credit card. And I guess you don't need any Japanese ability if you're reserving online through American Airlines, say. So I don't know if that was coherent or not, but I hope it's of some use. Once again, HIS for cheap fares is what I use if I have time and advance notice. And hey, if I ever need to make a trip on short notice again, American Airlines is definitely who I'm going to use. So, hope that's of some use to folks out there.